Hello and welcome to Better Business Podcast. My name is Alexi, and today I wanted to talk the aftermaths of COVID. Look, it's December 2023. A lot of people have forgotten about COVID, but trust me, it's still very, very real. I actually went to see a business owner today who's had half their staff sick with COVID. So it's still very real. It's still happening. Obviously, not to the extent that it was happening in 2020 and 2021 with various lockdowns and all the draconian measures we've had imposed onto us by the government. But look, that's another conversation altogether. I think, what I really would like to talk about is not so much the habits that COVID's created in terms of like remote work or shortage of staff or supply chain issues, even though there's a very real problems. I really want to talk about the fact that a lot of business owners really didn't quite understand what happened. And I think it's very important to go through the effects of COVID and the habits that it's created in order to understand the economy right now as to how you can actually run your business in 2024. So obviously 2020, 2021, we had a very overheated market where the government clearly printed out too much money, at least here in Australia. And people went on a bit of a buying frenzy, that people started buying things right, left, and center. There was a shortage of just about everything. The car industry, I think, just got back on track with the supply. But yeah, last year, the year before, it was almost impossible to buy a new car. The wait periods were quite long. If you look at like a Black Friday sales back in 2020, I think in one day, they basically sold more product than they did in the entire Christmas week in that same year, which was quite alarming because a lot of the time the retailers were really preparing for that Christmas sale well in advance. And because things worked out quite differently, I think a lot of businesses were caught off guard. So that was basically then. And I think what's important is to understand that people don't normally behave like that. I mean, there's obviously many different triggers as to why people did what they did. And it's important to understand what is going to be happening in 2024. Now, we're in a situation where we've got interest rate rises happening, and they've been happening for the last year and a bit. No one really knows what's going to happen next year, but chances are they may go up a little bit more again, which means that the borrowing capacity of majority of people will go down. There's obviously new competitors on the market as well. Whichever industry you're in, a lot of people decided to go into business on their own. Obviously, you've heard about the Great Resignation and people basically just thinking, hey, just about every industry has had no suppliers. So whatever you started basically landed your work purely because people wanted to get things done sooner rather than later. Now, the whole story about people starting a business when there's an opportunity, I think is great. It's good to be able to take action. But to assume that it's always going to be like that isn't quite a smart way to forecast, because a lot of the time, businesses that people start involve other people. They involve a lot of finance. They involve a lot of investment, not just time, but obviously, people's money and other things on the line as well. So I think it's about being strategic. It's about really understanding where we are right now, what we're going into. So I've heard quite a few businesses basically saying, hey, October, November has been, fairly quiet. And in fact, we've seen a lot of people searching for products, but I think the buying has been delayed quite a fair bit. We saw the construction industry obviously slowing down quite a fair bit and quite a few major players going out of business. Now, that's quite alarming, given the fact that Australian economy is built around property, and I think construction plays a huge role in it. So I think as a business owner, it's very important to be strategic with your decisions, to diversify and potentially understand where to invest in your business and what to really focus on. I think this is where potentially applying the 80-20 principle in your business may be a good time. Now, 80-20 principle is really more about understanding what's profitable in your business and what's working, and focus on that 20% to make it 100% over time. Now, it may not be as easy, obviously, if you've got a lot of different things going on, but if you run an online store, for example, you have to really understand what starts that initial conversation with the customer, what customers are after, and what allows you to then create upsells and repeat sales with that particular customer. I think it's important to understand that if you focus on one product or service, it's quite risky. You really need to make sure that you can diversify or potentially, really focus on something where you're a specialist, where you can really charge a decent amount and really start specializing, because that's really what your business should be all about. Because look, if there were, let's say, 100 businesses on the market back in 2020, and now there is 150 or 200 businesses in your particular niche, it's pretty tough, and you really have to understand what those competitors are going through as well. Now, that's one of the biggest things. I think that business owners don't really monitor their competitors that close. As a result, they make false assumptions. They don't really understand how things are going for them, and if that's a true reflection of the economy. I've recently spoken to a customer who had a chat with one of their competitors that they actually have pretty good terms with, where that competitor is actually letting people go. So what does that mean? Does that mean that they should be doing the same? Does that mean that there's an opportunity in the market? This is something that you really got to figure out for yourself. I find that, if everybody starts to cut back on staff or marketing and stuff like that, it doesn't mean that you have to do the same. You have to understand that the market has a certain size, and that market may stretch and may shrink, but there's always some activity going on. Rather than trying to mimic somebody, I think it's important to understand what your points of difference are and really understand how to focus on them. I think, strategic alliances is one of those other things that I've spoken about multiple times in my podcasts that people are still misunderstanding, because a lot of the time there is a customer journey that people go through. So, for example, if someone's going to get a house built, for example, then we need to involve potentially an architect. They potentially may need to involve a town planner and a whole bunch of other people. If you're one of those, for example, and you join forces with the others, you're actually able to provide, a one-stop shop for your customer by partnering with other businesses and making the conversation easier for them. I've spoken to real estate agents that basically partner up with conveyancing solicitors and building and best inspectors and all sorts of relevant businesses in order to streamline certain transactions as well. You have to really understand who your potential partners are and focus on working with them. Now, one of the biggest opportunities for COVID was where people started to cut back on the advertising to basically push advertising harder in those moments, because people weren't quite there at that moment. And as a result, it was very easy to dominate the entire market share. Now, a lot of the time, people only think a couple of weeks in advance or maybe a couple of months in advance. And I think, hey, I'm already booked out for the next 2 months. I don't really want to do any marketing and so on. However, what happens is that time runs out very, very fast. And you typically find that for bigger ticket items, people typically take a lot longer to make a decision when it comes to doing something. So as a result, I find this classical scenario of the Christmas break, which typically goes anywhere between mid-December to about mid-January, and sometimes all the way to Australia Day. And when people sort of get back to the business, they really struggle to find new work coming through straight away, because those inquiries that they would have received in that quiet period where they decided to put things on hold basically would be delayed by a further 2 to 4 weeks or so before things start to come through. So make sure you're strategically aligning the timing of your breaks and your marketing in order to be able to service these people. I mean, even if you get an inquiry while you're on a break, which has an autoresponder saying, hey, we're currently closed. We're monitoring our emails every few days or so, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can, would be reasonable, because I think a lot of the time people inquiring would also understand that people are taking a break. So I think it's just about thinking outside the box, understanding the seasonality, the timing a little different, and play your cards different too. I think COVID's really created a lot of bad habits in terms of how people expect things to be. I find a lot of people looking for work now because companies are starting to strip off the employers that are refusing to work on site, and potentially people who are not right for their company. At the time of COVID, they really just needed someone. Now they're basically looking to focus on people who are more efficient. So these people that are looking for work have got very high expectations, where in reality, I think their skills are a little bit behind as well. Look, you may disagree with what I'm saying, but if you look at the market overall, I think, there's obviously a lot of options for the employers right now. But at the same time, you've got the overseas market in Australia. So you've got people with different skill sets available. So look, guys, this is just my bare analysis and some tips for you around the COVID habits. If you got anything else you'd like to add, or you've noticed something over COVID as habits for business owners, please make sure you share. And I'd love to hear from you. And if you enjoy this podcast, and if you find anything that I say interesting or potentially that's worth exploring further, please comment below and make sure you don't subscribe. Make sure you subscribe to our channel and get your friends to subscribe as well. Have a great day, and I'll chat to you soon.